Okay, so here is your review video. Don't forget your test is either Wednesday, November 2nd, or Thursday, November 3rd. We will review a little bit. We will analyze your quiz that you took, and then we will take our test the last half of class. So I'm going to be circling some key words in here. Don't forget that, well, here's the first one right here. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. We then have point slope form, which is the one that you're going to have to put most of these into, which is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And then we all know standard form is getting your x and your y on the same side with a positive a value and no fractions. Okay, so first one says, what is the equation in slope-intercept form of the line that passes through the point negative 5, 1 and is perpendicular to the line represented by this? So we know a perpendicular slope is opposite reciprocal. So my slope is negative 1/2. So I'm going to take negative 1/2 and I'm going to make it opposite reciprocal. So negative goes to positive, and 1/2 is going to go to 2/1. So my slope is a positive 2. So I've got a slope and a point. So I'm going to put it in this point slope form, and then I'll convert it to slope-intercept form. So we have y plus 1 equals positive 2, because that's our new perpendicular slope, times x plus 5. But again, this is not the form. We need to convert it to slope-intercept form. So we'll distribute and get y plus 1 equals 2x plus 10. We're going to need to subtract this 1 from both sides, and we are going to end up getting y equals 2x plus 9 as our answer. And I'll box it right here for you. Okay. Our next problem is, what is the equation of the slope of a line parallel to the y-axis and passes through the point 3, negative 4? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself a little grid, and I want it parallel to the y-axis. So that means this is the axis that I want darkened, okay? And I want it parallel to it. So it passes through the point 3, negative 4. 3, negative 4 is over here. And I want it parallel to the y-axis. So that means my line's going to go this way. So this is a VUX, which is going to have an x equals equation with an undefined slope. So undefined slope, that's easier to pick out. So it could either be this one or this one. So I'll cross this out and I'll cross this out. And then as an x equals equation, right here, x equals, so it has to be x equals 3. Next one, if f of x equals x and g of x equals 3f of x, which statement describes how the functions are related? Well, f of x equals this x. So g of x essentially is 3x. Well, we know that this is our slope. So when our slope is bigger, we are going to get steeper. So it did not shift, so I can cross both of these out. It's not less steep because this is greater than 1, so it's going to be steeper than the graph of f. So our answer is D. All right, next one, number 4. What is the y-intercept of a line that is parallel to this and contains this point? So we do not know our slope from this, so we've got to find our slope. So that means we have to convert it to slope-intercept form. So we're going to subtract x from both sides. So we get negative 2y equals negative x plus 15. Divide by negative 2. We know that the number in front of x is an invisible 1. So our slope is negative 1/2, which equals a positive 1/2. Sorry, negative 1 over negative 2, which equals a positive 1/2. It then says we want the y-intercept. We have a slope and a point, so we have to put it in point slope form. So y plus 3 equals 1/2 times x minus 4. I almost wrote plus because you do the opposite. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. There we go. Okay, and we want the y-intercept. So again, we have to put it in slope-intercept form. So we'll distribute y plus 3 equals 1/2 x. 1/2 times minus 4 is going to be negative 2. And then I've got to get y by itself, so I'm subtracting 3. So I get y equals 1/2 x. Negative 2 minus 3 is going to give me a negative 5. And we want the y-intercept, so I'm going to circle this right here. So I know that that's what I'm putting in my box. So don't forget your negative sign. And then I'm just going to put the 5 right next to it. You could honestly put it anywhere. Okay. Next up, it says determine the equation and slope of the line perpendicular to the y-axis and 9 units below the x-axis. So again, I'm going to make myself a little grid, and it says perpendicular to the y-axis. So this is my y-axis, and we want to go perpendicular to it. So we're going to want to go sideways, and it says 9 units below the y-axis. So we're going to go down 9, and we're going to make it perpendicular. So this is at negative 9. Well, what kind of line is this? This is a horizontal line, so it ends up being a HOI, which means it's going to be a y equals equation. Remember, perpendicular means they create a 90-degree angle. So this is going to be y equals negative 9. And then when we have a HOI, this this letter in the middle means 0 slope. So my slope is 0. Flipping it over. Okay, it says write the equation of a line perpendicular to the x-axis and passes through the point negative 2, 5. So this is one of those drop-down boxes that you have the answers for and you fill it in. But again, I'm going to make my little grid over here. It says perpendicular to the x-axis. So I'm going to darken my x-axis. And I want it perpendicular, so we want to create it to make a T like this. Passes through the point negative 2, 5. So that point's up here. Okay. If we want to be perpendicular to it, we want my line to go this way. So this line ends up being a VUX because it is a vertical line. So it has an undefined slope. So we can go ahead and put that one right here. So this is going to be the letter B. And then it is an x equals equation. So we can go ahead and that'll be A for an x. And then it is at negative 2. Well, what's your x value in this point? It is also negative 2. So it is also A. Okay. Next, what is the equation of a line that crosses the x-axis at negative 45 and is perpendicular to this line represented by this? So if we are, sorry, someone was at the door. Line that crosses the x-axis at negative 45. So that means my point would be negative 45, comma 0. And it is perpendicular to this line. So if I'm perpendicular, I've got a slope of 5 over 7. And that means that we have to flip it and switch the sign. So this is a positive 5 over 7. So we're going to make it negative. And then it ends up being 7 over 5. So I'm going to use my new point and my slope, and I'm going to put it in point slope form. So I've got y. Well, I don't have a y value, so minus 0 equals negative 7 over 5 times x, and then plus 45. Okay? Do not get tricked up and just think that you're going to put a negative 45 over here. That's not how it works. You know that your slope is negative 7 over 5 already, so it's not going to be this one, and it's not going to be this one. We just got to figure out if it's positive or negative 63. So it's going to be y equals, because this 0 goes away, negative 7 over 5x, and then a negative times a positive is going to give me negative 63. So my answer is D. Okay. I already ended up doing number 8 with a previous class. So on number 8, it says, if g of x equals x and h of x is g of x minus 5, which statement describes how the functions are related? So all this means is x minus 5 because g of x is x. So x minus 5. We know that if it's outside the parentheses, you are going to go down 5. Because when you're outside the parentheses, you do exactly as you're supposed to do. So we shifted 5 units down. So my answer was C. I made a note over here that only if it's in parentheses, that's when you would do the opposite. So if this would have been inside the parentheses, notice my 5 is not inside any parentheses. It would have been opposite and gone to the right. All right, number 9, I want you to cross off. You do not need to do number 9. Cross it off. Okay, next, let's go to number 10. Again, do not do number 9. All right, on number 10, it says select all correct answers. So, which of the following statements are true? We have 4 over 5 parentheses x plus 3. So this 4 over 5, in my calculator, I learned that 4 over 5 is less than 1. If it's less than 1, it is going to be less steep. Okay. My next one says reflected. There is no negative sign, so it cannot be reflected. And then this is x plus 3 inside the parentheses. So if it's inside the parentheses, you do the opposite. The opposite of plus is minus, and minus means you go to the left. So it is shifted left from the graph of f of x. Okay, next thing. The graph of linear functions g and h are shown on the grid. Which function best represents the graph of h? So g is our linear parent function, which is y equals x. We know that h has completely flipped. So since it has completely flipped, it's going to be a reflection. Well, the only one that shows a negative g of x is b, because it reflected. Okay. Whoops, I did not realize I already did this one too. On number 12, I ended up already doing this one too, because this is one of those really, really long ones where you have to put it in standard form at the end. So the first thing that you have to do is over here to the right, and you have to find your slope. When they give you standard form, you don't know your slope, so you have to convert it to slope-intercept form. Sorry, let me read the question really quick. What is the equation in standard form of the line that passes through the point 8, -1 and is perpendicular to this line? So that means we found our slope, and it ended up being this -4 over -3. So that means it was a positive 4 over 3. Now, to make it perpendicular, because that's the vocab word, you have to make it negative because it was positive, and then flip your fraction. All right, well, we know the drill. You've got a point that they give you, and you've got a new slope. You've got a perpendicular slope. So we take our slope and our point, and we're going to put it in this point slope form. So what I did was I worked it down to slope-intercept form, and I looked at all my answer choices, and I said, those are not in slope-intercept form, so I had to convert it to standard. To convert it to standard, remember, you have to get your x on this left side. Luckily, we didn't even have to deal with the negative because this is minus right here, so it ends up being positive on this side because you had to do the opposite. But then we end up getting this equation right here, and we notice that there's a 4 on the bottom. It's a fraction. So to get rid of the fraction, you've got to multiply by what is on the bottom. And when we distributed and multiplied all of these things by 4, we ended up with 3x plus 4y equals 20. Okay. Next is, which of the following graphs are less steep than h of x? Okay. Well, h of x has a minus sign, which means reflect, but its slope is a 7, and that's really all that we're worried about. So I'm going to put the 7 right here. So I need every slope on here that is less than 7. The negative sign does not matter. Okay, 7 and 7, does that work? No, those are the exact same. 7 and 5. Remember, it's not -5. We're just looking at the slope, not the negative sign in front of it. So 5 is less, so this one works. This one is a 9, which is more, so it doesn't work. 7 over 2 ends up being 3.5, so this one does work. And then 17 over 2. I actually don't know what that is off the top of my head. So we are going to put it in our calculator, and we are going to do 17 divided by 2. And we get, whoops, can you see it? 8.5. So this ends up being 8.5, which is more than 7, so it doesn't work. So my two answers are g of x and k of x. Okay. And my last couple, I ended up kind of already doing. Oh, well, we didn't fully do it. It says, write the equation in slope-intercept form of a line that is parallel to the one graphed. The first thing that you have to do is find the slope of this line. Well, I found 2 happy points, and I found my slope to be -1/3. Well, then it told me to write the equation in slope-intercept form. So I keep my slope because it's parallel, and parallel lines have the same slope. And then I use my point of -2,5 and plug it in point-slope form. Well, this is not slope-intercept form, so we will need to simplify. So we're going to get y minus 5 equals -1/3x minus 2/3. Okay. And then we have to add 5 to both sides. So we're going to end up with y equals -1/3x. And then I've got to use my calculator to figure out what -2/3 plus 5 is. So let's use our calculator. And I'm going to do alpha y equals enter and do -2/3 plus 5. And I end up with 13/3, or I can change it into a decimal by doing 13 divided by 3, and I get 4.333333. So I'm just going to leave it 13/3. That's funky how that works out. Oh well. Okay, number 15. If f of x is the linear parent function, we have to know that our linear parent function is y equals x, guys. Okay? And then g of x is 1/2 f of x minus 1. So that means you would write it as 1/2 x minus 1. So that means it's going to be less steep, and it's going to go down 1. The first thing you can do to eliminate is look which ones are reflected, which ones are going down. So this is a positive slope. So it cannot be D because that one is reflected. Next, down 1. Okay, the only one that moves down 1 is this one and this one, but you need the one that is less steep, so that's why we went with B. This one ends up being more steep. You can just look at the way that it's leaning. Okay. And then, last but not least, this last one. Okay, what is the equation in slope-intercept form of a line that passes through the point -12,3 and is perpendicular to this line? So our slope is 3/4, and our perpendicular slope would be -4/3. Okay, well, you know the drill. We have a slope, and we have a point, so we put it in point-slope form. Y plus, nope, that's wrong. Why is this wrong? Because it's a +3, so it needs to be -3. Y minus 3 equals -4/3 times x plus 12, because it's a -12 here. Okay, and again, we have to distribute to get it in slope-intercept. Y minus 3 equals -4/3x. -4/3 times 12. So -4